Israel versus Iran. This is no longer a theoretical conflict that could happen at some point in the future. The era of proxy skirmishes or isolated missile and drone strikes is over. After Israel's Operation Rising Lion, the two countries are engaged in a full-blown showdown that is sending the Middle East into turmoil. The question on everybody's mind is simple: who wins? This is the in-depth military showdown worth watching, as the military show digs into how Iran and Israel compare. The breakdown begins with the numbers game. According to Global Firepower, GFP, which ranks 145 military nations every year, using a proprietary rating system that takes over 60 factors into account, Iran wins when it comes to sheer numbers. At least that's the case for manpower. Iran is a much larger country than Israel, both in terms of land mass and population. Iran has a population of around 90 million, which is close to 10 times higher than the 9.5 million who live in Israel. That higher population translates to a massive personnel advantage across the board. GFP says Iran has over 41.5 million people who are fit for service versus 3.2 million Israelis. Another 1.4 million Iranians reach military age per year, which is over 10 times the number in Israel. And digging into each country's active and reserve militaries, the results of this massive manpower numbers advantage becomes clear. Iran has an active military of 610,000 personnel, along with 350,000 reservists and 220,000 paramilitary forces. The latter are typically part of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which works independently of the country's military and, if Turkey today is to be believed, is rapidly gaining more political power in the wake of Operation Rising Lion. Israel's active military and paramilitary forces are much smaller than Iran's, numbering 170,000 and 35,000 respectively. However, it does have more reservists, boasting 115,000 extra personnel in this department. If the war between Israel and Iran was a ground battle where these kinds of numbers matter, Iran would have a clear advantage. But it's not. This is a confrontation where technology is coming to the forefront. So far, the entire campaign on both sides have been waged in the air. Israel is attacking Iran using its advanced fighter jets and their precise munitions. Iran is responding with missile and drone strikes launched from its territory that are designed to overwhelm Israel's air defenses. In a war like this, it doesn't matter that Iran has thousands more armored vehicles, more artillery, and a larger navy. It also doesn't matter that Iran is about 75 times the size of Israel geographically. If this were a land war, Iran could use that sheer size to spread Israel's troops thin, creating a massive front line where Iran's manpower numbers advantage pays off. But again, that's not the type of war Israel and Iran are fighting. And when the technology each side brings to the table is examined, a dramatic shift in who has the real advantage is revealed. Consider air defense equipment. Both countries have plenty of air defenses, though there are distinct differences in their quality and the philosophy behind the implementation of those defenses. Iran falls a long way behind Israel in this area. As AP News points out, much of Iran's military equipment is a hodgepodge of Soviet-era systems purchased from Russia and by the US prior to the 1979 Islamic Revolution, and domestically made systems that offer little, if anything, in way of technological advancement. The Jerusalem Post highlighted this back in October 2024, noting that Iran goes for a quantity over quality approach to its air defenses. Russian-made S-300s make up a large part of these defenses. In 2007, Iran inked an $800 million deal with Russia to bring that particular system into the country. Iran wanted 4 of them. The deal was delayed, but it eventually got what it wanted. The problem is that the S-300 is an old system. The original version of the system entered service in 1978. Though it's seen several upgrades since then, Iran can't escape the fact that it's stacking up Soviet-era air defenses against some of the most modern fighter jets in the world. More on that later. Iran has also developed air defenses of its own. However, these are often poor copies of systems that exist elsewhere. For instance, its Mersat system is a cheap copy of the US MIM-23 Hawk, though later versions of the Iranian system are at least road mobile. Iran also built the Sayyad-1 surface-to-air missile, which was based on the Chinese HQ-2J. Russian S-200s, which are even older and less effective than the S-300, are also incorporated into Iran's air defenses. Iran is also confirmed to have at least one Tor M1, another Russian system, because it used that weapon when it mistakenly shot down a commercial aircraft in 2020. There's more, but the pattern is clear. Iran's air defense strategy sees it mix and match whatever it can get its hands on to present an aerial defense. And again, for most countries in the Middle East, that works. Many of the nations surrounding Iran have weaker air defenses, aren't its enemy, or lack the aerial might to take advantage of the many gaps in Iran's approach. Israel, on the other hand, that's another story. Operation Rising Line proved that Iran's ramshackle air defenses couldn't withstand an onslaught from modern fighter jets. They can't even withstand sabotage attempts. The Times of Israel reports that Israeli Mossad agents carried out a series of sabotage operations against Iran's air defense systems before Operation Rising Line began, leaving them practically useless and showcasing how vulnerable those systems are. Former Israeli Director of Intelligence at Mossad, Zohar Palti, revealed in an interview with Sky News' Yalda Hakim that it took between 36 and 48 hours for Israel to dominate completely the skies above Iran.
We thought that it would be much harder, because I don't want to brag or to do things like that. I mean, it was much more fast than we anticipated.
These are not indications of a country that has a good air defense technology. Israel comes out far ahead in this area of the technological battle. Why? Because it's developed a multi-layered series of air defenses that combine forces to be far more effective than Iran's hodgepodge approach. Israel's main aerial defense strategy comprises a trio of systems: the Arrow, David's Sling, and the Iron Dome. Each has a specific purpose. The Arrow system is capable of intercepting incoming aerial threats at a distance of almost 1,500 miles, making it Israel's primary system for dealing with ballistic missiles. David's Sling has a range of 186 miles, which is ideal for mid-range threats, while the Iron Dome can take out targets up to 43.5 miles away. It's ideal for drones and any missiles that manage to make their way through the first two layers. Adding to this trio of systems is a Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, or THAAD battery Israel received from the US in October of last year. That THAAD battery sits between David's Sling and the Iron Dome, with a range of about 124 miles. Plus, even more is coming. Israel has combat tested a laser aerial defense weapon named the Iron Beam, which is capable of hitting a variety of aerial targets at close range. We have a video covering everything to know about the Iron Beam, so check it out to learn more. What's seen here is far different from Iran's air defense approach. Israel's systems are modern, layered, and supremely effective. It's also here where Israel's smaller size, which would be a disadvantage in a ground war, transforms into a huge benefit. Iran has far more territory to cover with its air defenses. Israel has far less, allowing it to create the focused approach it uses to shoot the majority of Iranian missiles and drones out of the skies. Israel's defenses aren't 100% effective, nothing truly can be, but both the Arrow and the Iron Dome are believed to have success rates of around 90%, which is huge in an aerial battle. Missiles and drones are another area where technology will have a huge impact on the fight between Iran and Israel. With missiles, Iran again takes a quantity over quality approach, with Professor Michael Clark of Sky News saying that Israel believes Iran is building around 300 new missiles per month. He also points out that current estimates suggest that Iran has anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 missiles, a stockpile it's built up almost exclusively to counter the threat that Israel poses. That sheer volume of missiles has a purpose. Iran hopes to overwhelm Israel's far more advanced aerial defenses through sheer numbers. It's a smart strategy. For as effective as the Iron Dome and Israel's other defenses may be, they still need missiles of their own. Those missiles are both finite and expensive. Iran is hoping it can use sheer numbers to whittle away at Israel's air defense missile stockpiles, eventually leaving the country open to attack. Iran also seems to have some advanced missiles in its arsenal. AP News reports that an unnamed Israeli military official stated on June 19 that Iran fired a missile containing multiple warheads at Israel for the first time during its response to Operation Rising Lion. That missile may be the Khorram Shah, which Iran says was first tested in 2017. It's another derivative weapon. This one's based on a North Korean missile, AP News reports the Center for Strategic and International Studies is saying. Plus, the multiple warheads may be a reference to submunitions rather than true multiple independently targeted re-entry vehicle or MIRV technology. Still, it's a heavy hitter that, when combined with Iran's sheer numbers, could cause some serious damage if it gets through Israel's air defenses. Of course, Israel is far from defenseless on the missile front. Beyond the advanced missiles it uses in its air defense systems, it has several types of missiles it can use to hit Iran. The sea-launched Harpoon will prove useful if the conflict between Iran and Israel takes on a naval component. The same goes for the Gabriel. However, it's Israel's Jericho missiles that present the biggest threat to Iran, at least from a ground launch perspective. Both the Jericho 2 and Jericho 3 are believed to be nuclear capable and have massive ranges. Jericho 2 can hit targets up to 932 miles away, which is a long enough range to hit Iran, while Jericho 3, which has been in service since 2011, likely has a range of between 2,982 and 4,038 miles. Both are also believed to be true MIRVs. Iran has to worry about them because Israel has already shattered its air defenses, meaning Iran might not be able to do much to defend itself if Israel chooses to use them. One area where Iran may have a technological advantage is in drones. Israel has drones. The problem, assuming it even cares about bringing drones to the fight, is that it doesn't have a lot of them. That's according to Statista, which estimated in November 2024 that the Israel Defense Force, or IDF, has 1,105 military drones in its arsenal, which it uses for reconnaissance and combat operations. Iran has a lot more, though in this case, its quantity over quality approach makes sense. The jewel in Iran's drone-making crown is the Shahed and its multiple variations. United Against Nuclear Iran quotes former CIA operations officer Bernard Houston as claiming that Iran is capable of building about 100 Shaheds per month at a cost of about $20,000 per unit. That's a lot of drones. A year's worth of production gives Iran more drones than the IDF has. The odds are that there are now thousands of Shaheds in Iran's stockpiles. It's also using those drones, along with its missiles, to eat away at Israel's air defense stockpiles. Israel is well aware of this drone disparity. That's why taking out nuclear sites and killing key Iranian military personnel weren't the only goals it wanted to achieve with Operation Rising Lion. Israel also targeted a host of Iranian weapon production facilities, said the Jerusalem Post on June 15, and it's likely that the factories pumping out Iran's drones are major targets. For now, Iran has the drone advantage and arguably comes ahead when it comes to missiles. But again, its weak aerial defenses are causing problems. If Israel continues focusing on production facilities, what Iran has in its stockpiles right now may be all it can use to attack Israel. Next up, the technology Israel used to conduct the bulk of Operation Rising Lion. Aircraft. On the surface, there isn't a huge difference between the air forces of Iran and Israel. The latter brings 611 aircraft to the fight, says GFP, with the former having 551. Iran has 188 fighter jets compared to Israel's superior 240, though it has 74 more aerial transports. Israel comes out on top in most other departments, including aerial tankers, attack types, and helicopters. On paper at least, the numbers difference isn't so large as to guarantee Israel's aerial dominance. But remember the comment shared earlier from the former Mossad chief. Israel achieved dominance over Iran's skies in less than 48 hours. It did that in large part because the aircraft Israel can field are far superior to anything that Iran has in its arsenal. Clark explains this when speaking on Sky News. He calls fighter jets Israel's weapon of choice, and he's not wrong. The Royal United Services Institute reports that Israel used more than 200 combat aircraft, the majority of them being fighter jets, during the first 24 hours of Operation Rising Lion.
Of course, there are its fighter jets, the F-15, the F-16 and the F-35. Very stealthy, the F-35 can get through radar defenses undetected.
These aerial platforms are ideal for conducting cruise missile strikes and bombing campaigns against a country like Iran, which has the ramshackle and outdated aerial defenses mentioned earlier. What does Iran offer up as a response? Nothing much, Clark points out.
The Iranians, they operate much older Russian jets, and they've lost some of them, they don't work as well.
The Times of Israel builds on this, reporting in October 2024 that Iran has 9 F-4s and F-5s, along with a squadron of Russian Su-24 fighter jets and assorted F-7, F-14 and MiG-29s. All of these fighter jets come from the 1980s or before, and none of them compared to the might of the F-35, never mind the older F-15s and F-16s Israel can field. The age of these jets means that Iran also can't launch the type of aerial campaign against Israel that was used in Operation Rising Lion. It could try, but Israel's superior air defenses would be more than capable of shooting down many of these jets. Plus, Israel has the option of deploying its far superior fighters to tackle any incoming from Iran. It's the lack of strength in this air force that has prompted Iran to focus so heavily on its missile and drone stockpiles, Clark points out. While those missiles' ranges would put Israel and hundreds of US bases in the crosshairs around the region, they're also indicative of a country that is a one-trick pony in an aerial war that involves fighter jets, the missiles and bombs they can drop, and advanced aerial defenses. Finally, there's the kicker. The weapon that could be deployed today and end the Iran-Israel conflict in a matter of hours. Nuclear weapons. Israel started Operation Rising Lion in large part because it wanted to stop Iran from getting its hands on a nuclear weapon. What Israel conveniently ignores is that it has a nuclear arsenal of its own. The fact is never officially acknowledged, as Israel's ambiguous nuclear doctrine is to never confirm or deny the presence of nuclear weapons on its territory. But most experts believe that it has them, and that it has more than enough to wipe Iran off the map if its massive technological advantage isn't enough to get the job done. The Nuclear Threat Initiative, or NTI, says Israel is estimated to have 90 nuclear warheads, including warheads that can be packed into the previously mentioned Jericho missiles and nukes that can be fired from its Dolphin 1 and Dolphin 2 class submarines. And that's not all. The NTI says that Israel could go further if it wants, as it's believed to have enough materials to build up to 300 nukes. Note the repeated uses of words like estimated and believed. Nobody knows what Israel has for sure, as the country keeps its collective lips sealed tight when it comes to its nuclear arsenal. As for Iran, it's no secret that it wants a nuclear weapon. Its problem, at least in the context of a war against Israel, is that it doesn't have them. Yet. The Council on Foreign Relations says that Iran has a long history of trying to develop nuclear weapons in secret, which often puts it in violation of its own international commitments. Iran certainly has the knowledge needed to enrich uranium to the point where it could build a nuclear warhead, along with the infrastructure needed to do so. That shouldn't come as too much of a surprise. Iran's nuclear programs, which cover energy and weapons, are about 50 years old. Still, it doesn't have nuclear warheads yet, and at this point, it may not be able to develop them for quite a while. Several key Iranian nuclear sites, along with many of the scientists that are pivotal to its nuclear programs, have been targeted during Operation Rising Lion. Israel is trying to take Iran out of the nuclear game before it really has a chance to enter, leaving Israel alone as the sole Middle Eastern nation with nukes. Ultimately, this is a battle between two nations who take a drastically different approach to warfare. Iran is well equipped for a ground war and will likely be able to wear Israel down in a war of attrition in that scenario. However, a ground war isn't going to happen, at least not until Israel is 100% confident that Iran has been weakened to the point where it can send boots on the ground. Instead, this is a conflict that is being fought and will continue to be fought almost exclusively in the air. And in that domain, Israel's technology is far superior to Iran's. Even in the areas where Iran has a numbers advantage, such as its missile and drone stockpiles, Israel can counter with superior air defenses and its much more powerful air force. So, will Israel be able to make these many technological advantages pay off? That remains to be seen, though the early signs certainly seem to be good for Israel. Still, there's a long way to go. What we're seeing right now between Israel and Iran is just the beginning. The real firestorm is on its way, as you'll find out if you watch our video covering what comes next in the conflict. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe to The Military Show for more up-to-date commentary on the latest developments in the Middle East.